You're watching Outnumbered. I'm Harris Faulkner, here with my co-hosts Emily Campagno and Kayleigh McEnany. Also joining us today, former State Department spokesperson Morgan Ortagus and Fox & Friends co-host and the host of One Nation, Brian Kilmeade, is here. We begin with the newly released report from Special Counsel John Durham, nearly 4 years since beginning of his investigation of the origins of the Trump-Russia collusion narrative. The special counsel concluded that the FBI and the Department of Justice failed to uphold their mission of strict fidelity to the law. House Judiciary Committee Chairman Jim Jordan is now inviting John Durham to testify before his committee on Capitol Hill. Meanwhile, the mainstream media and Democrats are trying to write off the Durham report as, nothing new.
Durham's whole thing is predicated on, it's like a rabbit hole conspiracy.
This is a predictable, sad ending to an investigation that never should have taken place.
What you have with John Durham is like, it's a big fat nothing.
Durham is a kind of pathetic character. 4 years, I don't know how many millions of dollars, I don't know how many people, how many of his friends he hired in his office to do what? To issue a basically blatantly false report.
We've spent an awful lot of money as an American government on a report that essentially proves no wrongdoing.
There is nothing new here. We knew from the very beginning this was never a legitimate investigation.
Brian Kilmeade, where would you like to begin?
How wrong they were and how unbelievable it is that Peter Strzok, Andrew Weissman, and Andy McCabe would come out when they really should be disgraced and apologize. I mean, they're flat out. They had an investigation that took place for 4 years, and they're complaining against an investigation into why they were investigating a Trump-Russia collusion that never existed. They should be apologizing to the American people. They said that Paul Manafort, George Papadopoulos, and Michael Flynn, as well as Carter Page, got together, and because of their hooks into Russia that didn't exist, it means Donald Trump's whole campaign and his presidency shouldn't really happen. For 4 years, they said he was illegitimate. For 4 years, everything that the Trump did, from the North Korea meeting to tax cuts on down to the Abraham Accords, every time he had something, a Russia probe investigation or revelation would pop up. And this is all proven that it's fiction. Instead of admitting to it, like Jake Tapper says, and you'll see this shortly, they come out and say this.
All right, let's watch that.
The report is now here. It has dropped. And it might not have produced everything of what some Republicans hoped for. It is, regardless, devastating to the FBI. And to a degree, it does exonerate Donald Trump.
Last quick thought, I'll move on.
How hard was it for him to say that? I mean, basically his network lived off the whole Trump connection. Their anger at Kayleigh and others who would sit up there and try to tell you what's going on in the country. Instead, they talked about Russia. This proves, these 300 pages, that the investigation never should have happened, and they're still defiant.
So that was my point with Kellyanne Conway last hour. You know, the nation not only did not hear the truth about what was going on in the Russia narrative, but they didn't hear a whole lot of other stuff either that should have been coming out of the White House, because everything was sort of being filtered for the White House. Like, only answer these questions about this one thing, when there were a lot of things that were going on that the American people would have wanted to know.
Right. To your point, distracting from the business of the American people on the world stage and here domestically, because you had networks committed to perpetuating this false narrative that we now know is all false. We've known it for years and years. Didn't stop many people from continuing with it even to this day. I would say this, too, about the Durham report. You know, Durham did his job in trying to match the facts to the law. But I don't think our legal system ever envisioned a national police force that would try to sway an election, because that's what this was with the FBI, a national police force trying to sway an election. So we just simply don't have laws to match the fact pattern that we saw on, as devastating as it will be. But I would also note this didn't just happen once, it happened twice with Hunter Biden, because we learned last week from the testimony of David Karians, a CIA individual, that a current CIA analyst, when he submitted something for pre-publication review, in return, Karians gets an email saying, hey, sign on to this letter with 51 other intel officials. But this is allegedly a current CIA employee doing this. So the FBI says, oh, we've changed dozens of things. Well, CIA, have you changed dozens of things? Because you might have swung an election because you covered up something that was of vital interest to the American people.
Talk to me about what it was like like Morgan to be inside of an administration where the man at the top was targeted in this way. Now we know that the FBI, according to Durham's report, treated Clinton and Trump so very differently.
Well, and Kaylee and Emily are lawyers, and I appreciate their legal perspective. On the foreign policy side, where I was with Mike Pompeo, it was incredibly frustrating because we actually had more actions and more sanctions and more things that we were doing against Putin and the Russian regime than any presidency since the Cold War, but we couldn't give it covered because of the lies that were perpetrated by the Clinton campaign and by the Obama FBI and DOJ. And by the way, the FBI and DOJ, as Kaylee just said, are saying, oh, we've made all of these changes. You know, this report is old. We've already made changes. Well, there's a whistleblower in Congress right now before Grassley in the Senate saying no, that actually the IRS and the DOJ are actually trying to stop anything that's Biden related. So long story short, I think that this could not be more serious. I encourage everyone to look at Senator Mike Lee's tweet thread on this. I think politicizing the intelligence community and federal law enforcement, trying to swing an election the way they did, it will have generational consequences for our intelligence community and for our federal law enforcement. There is a distrust by many people in America for these institutions in a way that bothers me because I support these institutions. I have been a part of these institutions, but we have a serious national security problem and progressives taking apolitical organizations and making them inherently political.
So just to further what you were saying, and a real quick response from you, Jason Chaffetz was asking, well, former chairman of the Oversight Committee, are we at a point where we should start to take away security clearances, national security clearances for the former Intel chief, Adam Schiff? Do we take it away from Congressman Eric Swalwell? Your feeling on that?
Yeah, I don't know why either of them would have them. I don't see how Eric Swalwell should even be able to run for Congress considering what he's doing. He certainly wouldn't be qualified if he was, you know, an E4 in the military, wouldn't be qualified for a military security clearance. I would like to know from legislators what can be done, because we see all of this and I hear them talking about reform, but I want to know what can actually be done. Do we need a bipartisan commission? We cannot let this be swept under the rug, and that's what they're trying to do right now.
All right, Emily.
Right, there's so much here. I think my overarching thought is that we just need to continue viewing this rather than an isolated book as one chapter of many. Because in this story that was uncovered in this Durham report, it essentially and clearly covered multiple iterations of this beast of the FBI, this beast of a DOJ that has, like a chameleon, changed its colors depending on what year you're in and who's in office. And to your point of the politicization, so we had a sitting Congressman, Adam Schiff, who at the time was chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, saying, I have seen the evidence. And now we know there hasn't been any.
Yeah.
And then we learned that he sought to actually stop the Durham investigation. He said at the time that that served, ironically, to delegitimize President Biden at the time. We know that thanks to the Durham report, not only was there this obfuscating cloak that they were involved in, right? Everyone look over here, look at this fake dossier, this fake, you know, Russia collusion, whatever, for Trump, forgetting everything else. Meanwhile, they were squishing down the investigation into the Clinton Foundation. They were sloughing off all of Hillary Clinton's blatant illegal activities as harmless error. And they totally ignored, to your FISA foreign intelligence point, the illegal campaign contributions that she received. It is a tale of two cities, 100%. Two countries. But the point again, it's a tale of multiple. So we cannot take our eye off the ball that there is a multi-undercurrent layer of this story.
You know, Kaylee, you and I shared a look here when you said that the changes come depending on who's in office, which kind of furthers that thought of, are they serving themselves then at the top of some of these agencies and not even loyal to the people that they may choose who are in the office? It's an interesting question. We've got to move, but we'll hit it a different day.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Compagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.